Last season, I walked out to my zucchini patch and counted 14 baby fruits rotting on the vine in a single week. 14. Meanwhile, my neighbor 2 doors down was hauling zucchini out by the armful from half as many plants. That gap right there, that's what got me obsessed with figuring out what was actually going on. Because the conventional advice you read online, water more, feed more, spray more, it was making my problem worse, not better. Then I started digging into the pollination biology and running my own side-by-side tests across 3 growing seasons, and what I found completely reset how I grow zucchini. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly why your zucchini are shriveling up and turning yellow before they ever get to harvest size, and how to fix it starting this week. And stay with me to the end because I'll share a little trick I stumbled on by accident with a Q-tip and a morning cup of coffee that turned my worst producing plant into my best one in under 10 days. Now, before I get into the fix, I want to be straight with you. I did this wrong for about 15 years. I used to see those little rotting fruits and think, okay, the plant needs more water, so I'd soak it. Then I'd think it needs more fertilizer, so I'd hit it with a dose of tomato food. Then I'd assume I had a fungus problem and start spraying. None of it worked, and looking back, most of what I was doing was actually making the plants weaker. If you've been doing the same thing, you're not alone. I was right there with you, standing in the garden with a watering can, making the problem worse. Then one afternoon I was reading some research out of Cornell on cucurbit fruit set, and it clicked. I wasn't dealing with a disease problem, I was dealing with a pollination problem, and once I understood that, everything else fell into place. Here's the core thing you need to understand, because this is the foundation for every fix I'm about to show you. Zucchini, squash, cucumbers, pumpkins, all of them produce 2 different kinds of flowers on the same plant. Male flowers and female flowers. The female flowers are the only ones that become fruit, and they have a tiny baby zucchini attached right behind the blossom before the flower even opens. The male flowers just have a straight stem. For that baby zucchini to actually grow into a full fruit, the female flower has to receive pollen from a male flower within about a 6-hour window on the morning it opens. If that doesn't happen, the plant aborts the fruit. It yellows, softens, and rots right on the vine. It's not dying. The plant is literally cutting its losses because pollination failed. Once you see that, you stop spraying and start fixing the real problem. So here's where the fix begins. The first thing you need to do is go out to your plant tomorrow morning, ideally between 7 and 9 a.m., and actually identify what you have. Look at each open flower. If there's a small thumb-sized zucchini behind the blossom, that's female. If the stem behind the flower is straight and thin, that's male. I want you to count them. In a healthy patch, you should see roughly 2 to 3 male flowers for every female. If you're seeing all female and no males, or the opposite, that's your first clue, and I'll get to what to do about it in a minute. Now here's the second piece, and this is where most people go wrong. Zucchini flowers only stay open for one single morning. They open around sunrise and close permanently by early afternoon. If pollination doesn't happen in that window, the fruit is done. So when you're scouting, you're not just counting, you're timing. If you see closed, yellowing female flowers with a shriveled baby fruit behind them, that's a pollination failure, not a watering issue. Don't reach for the hose. The third thing to check is your pollinator activity. Stand by your plants for about 5 minutes in that morning window. Are you seeing bees moving between flowers? If you're counting fewer than 3 or 4 visits across your whole patch in 5 minutes, you don't have enough pollinators, and that's the root of your rot problem. I had this exact issue in my back garden because I had it tucked behind a fence where bees weren't finding it easily. Moving forward with more flowering companions in the bed fixed it almost overnight, and I'll come back to that. Before I get into the hand pollination technique, I want to pause for a second. Everything I'm sharing today is part of a much bigger system I put together after testing these methods across dozens of crops in my own backyard. If you want the complete playbook, I wrote a 115-page guide called the 30-Day Maximum Yield Protocol. It covers soil biology, strategic pruning for higher yields, companion planting systems, succession scheduling, and the science behind why each method actually works. It's $17, and it's the same system that transformed my own garden results. You can scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description below to grab it. All right, let's keep going. So you've identified your flowers and you've figured out you've got a pollination gap. Here's how to fix it by hand. And honestly, this is the single most reliable technique I've ever used on zucchini. Go out in the morning between 7 and 9 a.m. when the flowers are fully open. Find a male flower, that's the one with the straight stem, and pick it right off the plant. Don't worry, you've got plenty. Peel back or tear off the yellow petals so you're left with the central stamen, which is the little pollen-covered stick in the middle. It should look dusty yellow. Now find an open female flower, the one with the baby zucchini behind it, and gently swab that stamen directly onto the center of the female flower, the stigma. You're basically acting as the bee. Rotate it around, make contact with all the little lobes in the center, and you're done. One male flower can pollinate 2 or 3 females if you're careful. Do this for every open female flower you see. Here's the conventional approach versus what I've found works better. Most folks who learn about hand pollination use a small paintbrush. That works, but you lose a lot of pollen on the bristles and you can spread mildew spores between plants. What I've found after 3 seasons of testing is that using the male flower directly gives you significantly higher fruit set, somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% successful pollination versus about 60% with a brush. The pollen transfers cleaner and there's more of it. Now the next piece is making sure you actually have enough flowers of both types to work with. If you're seeing mostly male flowers early in the season with no females, that's totally normal. Zucchini plants typically produce male flowers first for about 1 to 2 weeks before female flowers start showing up. Don't panic, don't over-fertilize, just wait. If you're seeing mostly female flowers and no males, which happens sometimes under stress, cut back on nitrogen. High nitrogen fertilizer pushes leaf growth and throws off the male to female flower ratio. Switch to something balanced or slightly higher in phosphorus, like a 5-10-10, and you'll see male flowers come back within about a week. Next, let's talk about water, because this is where I used to really mess up. When a zucchini plant is stressed from inconsistent watering, it aborts fruit. Simple as that. The plant decides it can't support the fruit load and drops the babies. What I do now is deep water 2 to 3 times a week, giving each plant about 1 to 2 gallons at the base, letting the top 2 inches of soil dry out between waterings. You want it to feel like a wrung-out sponge when you stick your finger in, not soggy, not bone dry. For folks in zones 3 through 5 with shorter seasons, stick closer to twice a week. In zones 7 through 10, where heat is intense, you'll likely need 3 times a week, and a 2 to 3 inch layer of straw mulch makes a huge difference. Now let me show you how to set up your patch so pollination happens on its own going forward. This is the step that eliminated rot in my garden almost entirely. Plant flowers that bloom continuously right alongside your zucchini. My go-to combinations are Barrage, which bees absolutely swarm, zinnias for a long bloom window, and sweet alyssum around the base of the plants. I put 1 borage plant for every 2 zucchini plants, spaced about 18 inches away, and I tuck alyssum in between. Once I did this, my morning bee counts went from 1 or 2 visits in 5 minutes to well over a dozen. Here's a pattern I see all the time. The first mistake is overwatering at the first sign of yellowing fruit. Your instinct is to water more, but if pollination is the real issue, extra water just stresses the roots and makes fruit drop worse. Check for pollination first, water second. The second pattern is too much nitrogen. Folks dump compost and fertilizer on their zucchini, thinking more food equals more fruit. What actually happens is the plant grows giant leaves and throws off its flower ratio. I did this for years. Go easy on the nitrogen once the plant is established and you'll get more balanced flower production. The third pattern is planting zucchini in isolation. One lonely zucchini plant tucked in the corner of a bed will struggle with pollination because pollen needs to move between plants for best results. Always grow at least 2, ideally 3 plants together, spaced about 3 feet apart. And the fourth pattern is spraying fungicides at the first sign of rotting fruit. I get why people do it. The tip of the fruit looks fuzzy and soft, but that's secondary decay happening after pollination already failed. Spraying doesn't fix the cause. Skip it and fix the pollination first. Okay, here's the bonus I promised. Last summer, I was hand pollinating one morning, coffee in one hand, Q-tip in the other, because I'd run out of male flowers early, and I dipped the Q-tip into the pollen of the 1 male flower I had left. I got curious and swabbed 6 different female flowers with that same Q-tip, rotating it between each one. Every single one set fruit. Then I tested something. I took a Q-tip, collected pollen from a male flower, and stored it in a small sealed container in the fridge overnight. The next morning, I used that stored pollen on female flowers when no males were open. Fruit set was around 80%. This means if you have a day where only female flowers open, which happens, you can save pollen from the day before and still get a harvest. That one accidental discovery turned my worst plant into my best producer in about 10 days. Before we wrap up, If you found this helpful and you want to go deeper on getting more food out of every plant in your garden, grab the 30-day maximum yield protocol. It's 115 pages covering the full soil biology system I use, strategic pruning techniques that multiply yields on tomatoes, peppers, and squash, the exact companion planting combinations I run in my own beds, succession planting schedules for continuous harvests, and the research-backed reasoning behind every single method. It's $17, and it's the guide I wish I'd had 15 years ago when I was losing 14 zucchini a week. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description below. So the next time you see those yellowing, rotting baby zucchini on the vine, don't reach for the hose or the sprayer. Grab a male flower, do the swab, and watch what happens over the next 3 days. Let me know in the comments how many fruits you saved this week. Good luck out there, and keep growing.